The Office of the Data Commissioner is currently handling 800 cases of data breach amid efforts to show up sensitization programs to boost compliance of data protection regulations. Our senior reporter Regina Manyara engages Data Commissioner Immaculate Kassait on inroads made in fostering adoption of the new data protection law.
Information, communication and technology is driving the fourth industrial revolution. But the question is matters of data protection. Good evening, I'm Regina Manyara and this is Prime Edition. Tonight we're going to be talking about data protection, and our guest this evening is none other than the Data Commissioner Immaculate Kassait. Welcome and thank you for your time. 2 years in since operationalization of the Office of the Data Protection Commissioner, what would you say are your key milestones?
This office came into force in November 2020. And I would say some of the key milestones we've had, of course, we've had an opportunity. We got the regulations from the Data Protection Act. We have 3 sets of regulations. We've been able to operationalize the office. Initially, we started from a small office at Communication Authority. We now are based at Brigham Towers, with operations it's expanding to 13 regions. But for now, we are in 3 regions by the end of this financial year. The other key milestone for us is we've been able to register over 2,200 data protection data controllers. We've admitted over 800 complaints as an office. We've joined 3 key international organizations. One is the National Network for African Data Protection Authorities, where just last week in Burkina Faso we have been selected as the first vice chair, and will be voted to host next data protection for NADPA assembly here. We are a member of GPA as an office. In addition to that, we have a strategy for 3 years that we've been able to put in place. As an office also, we have been able to recruit staff. As an office, we've been able to create numerous awareness creation. I could go on and on in terms of an office, but I have to say it's been quite a quick run through in terms of our achievements. And of course, being here today to create awareness with the media is also one of our own achievements.
What has been the major challenge in having a data protection ecosystem?
I would say lack of awareness, and also then that is mostly because it's very new in the area. We are so used as an African culture. We are oral. We like sharing a lot of our information. So we are a sharing culture. So now suddenly we are telling people, hey, hold on, you don't have to share all your information in this tissue area. So I would say that is one of the issues. Change of culture, awareness creation. Of course, you can see a sense of change. People tend to resist. People think, oh, why another new law? Why on data protection? Are you going to interfere with innovation? Those are some of the challenges that we see as an office.
You say you have registered over 2,200 data controllers and processors and had over 800 admissions in terms of cases. What does this say in regard to matters of compliance?
It's actually mandatory. Once the law came into force in 2019, it became compulsory for data controllers and data processors. And for us, when the regulations were gazetted, which was last year, July, it's now compulsory for every data controller and data processor, anyone collecting personal data, to register with the Office of the Data Commissioner. It's a requirement. And the reason is, if you're collecting personal information, we need to know as Kenyan citizens that our information is safe. The place to start that journey is by registration as for a data controller and data processor. Compliance it's a whole set of things that you need to do. Are you conducting your data protection impact assessment? Have you embraced data protection by default or by design? When you collect personal data, when you process personal data, when you store personal data, when you dispose personal data, are you making sure that the entire chain, my personal data, is safe? Because the flip side of it is internet trolling, mental health issue, suicide we can see. I mean, we don't want that to happen. We don't want to be out there and your private information is everywhere. you want it secure because it's personal to you.
Where do we draw the line when it comes to matters of privacy as well as data protection?
Actually, we have received over 2,000, but the ones we have admitted are 8,000. There are different stages. We have issued, they are either in scrutiny stage, investigation stage, and because our investigation it is supposed, a complaint is supposed to be handled within 90 days. There's a back and forth between us and the person or the complainant and the data controller so that we get, so there are different stages, I have to say.
What role is the Office of the Data Commissioner playing when it comes to matters of the digital superhighway?
A digital superhighway, basically, from an infrastructure perspective, is to make sure Kenya have access to internet, to be able to do e-commerce, to be able to access the market, to be able to communicate from every corner of the country. When they communicate, it's about personal information being shared. Our work is to make sure that we are regulating and making sure that that information as it's being collected, that it is safe and secure, to give that assurance to the Kenyan public.
There's a proposal to do a surveillance by the Kenya Revenue Authority and telecommunications companies to just monitor transactions, especially on the mobile money platforms. What is your take in regard to that?
The work, there are various ways of why data is collected. It's either because of consent, lawful purpose, authority, public interest, and many of these government institutions fall within that. Our work, therefore, is to make sure, even as they do their duty, as provided for by law in terms of collecting personal data, they do it within the confines of the Data Protection Act. Our work is to make sure it is safe. How we make sure it's safe is by one, inspections, audits, investigation in case we receive a complaint, awareness creation. That is how we make sure your data is safe. And by having us here as a regulator, we are here to make sure that your information is safe and safeguarded by those who collect it on your behalf.
What action does your office take in the event of a data breach that goes unreported?
In the event that we are conducting our regular audit or inspection and we discover that this was never reported to us, you're likely to suffer the consequences as when we decide how much fine to impose on you. Reporting data breach is encouraged because it is a way of actually ni kujipima, or what I would say, looking at yourself and saying, these were my faults and this is how I need to rectify. People need to see it from that perspective because you're dealing with personal information. It's not just anything. It's about ethical way of doing business. So when you report, it's an opportunity for you to make sure your systems are more strengthened. And when we're ready to report, when we eventually catch up with you, the consequences are well stipulated in the law.
Is it time for media houses to also, register as data controllers and have a data policy?
Yes, indeed. All media houses are supposed to register as data controllers because they collect sensitive personal information. Yes, indeed, time has come. Even though the Data Protection Act does not make it compulsory to have a data protection officer, it is good practice.
Where are we at when we say, or rather when we talk about data portability?
What data portability means? It means if you're in a hospital in the village, you should be able to carry your information if you go to another hospital in urban areas. You should be able to access your information and move with it. Whether it is any institution, whether an insurance company, whether a bank, and so on and so forth. Data portability is to allow you to carry your information from point A to point B. I would say that's a right that is provided for data protection, for data subject. And right now, I would not say we have any statistics in terms of data portability.
Why is it important that Kenya will be hosting the NEDPA conference next year?
NEDPA gives us an opportunity to showcase what we have, that we as a country, as a regional hub, we've been able to do to make sure that our space ecosystem is safe for purposes of more innovation, because we are securing personal data. Two, we have some of the best export as a country. We in digital export, we have M-Pesa, which is one of the highly rated globally as setting the pace, a trailblazer on apps. Two, we have a big data center here. either by Konza or the African Data Center. It's an opportunity to showcase what we have as a country and what people can do. 3, we have 6 undersea cable, cable which has made easy access. So as a country, we have an opportunity to showcase how it is easier to do businesses as far as connectivity is concerned. For of course, we are a tourism destination. This is an opportunity for us to market our country. Not just, we are used to the traditional tourism, but now we are tourists in terms of digital tourism. Yeah.
Which institutions or entities are exempt on matters data protection?
There is nobody exempt in terms of the data protection. However, although there is no absolute exemption, journalists are exempt because you see they do their work if we say journalists must adhere to data protection, it means they cannot share information, but they're exempt. The other one is for statistical purposes. Those are the 2 largely I can talk about. And of course, for another reason why people can be exempt if it's for national security, or the other reason is for public interest. Those are the 3 large areas in terms of exemption. And of course, if you're sharing data for your own home use, or if you belong to a club, those are some of the exemptions provided for under the Data Protection Act.
It's very common accessing, hotels, institutions. Kenyans are required to leave behind their details, including their national identification cards. At what point does it become a breach?
Let me give it an example. If, for instance, you came to this hotel and they are collecting personal information at the reception, they are supposed to secure it. If an unwarranted person accesses that information and they did not have the credential or the permission, it becomes a data breach.
How far does your office's mandate stretch?
There are cases in court on multinationals which we are joined, and we are responsible for personal data, whether processed by local company or multinationals.
Where do you see Kenya when it comes to matters of data protection in the next 5 years?
I see a country where personal data will be respected, where businesses will focus on doing business in an ethical manner, where we will treat personal data as not as commodities, but we will take the rights of the data subject into account, where doing businesses will thrive because they will take the considerations of the data subject. As an office, I see the awareness growing, I see the office growing, I see an increase in terms of consciousness of the use of data and how it is being utilized. Just like is the case in Europe or in other parts of the world where data is being taken much more seriously. Since it's the new oil, we must use it responsibly.
Well, there you have it. We have been speaking to the Data Commissioner, Immaculate Kassait, and it still remains that data is oil and such. Data protection is key. I'm Regina Manyara. You've been watching Prime Edition.